Hey, what's up out there, guys? Welcome to Movies Never Say Die. I'm Anthony DeJoya, and this is your home for 80s and 90s retro movie content. I'm continuing my journey of the lost movies of the 1990s. This is episode 2. I have 10 more titles, one from each year. This episode will feature everything from horror to comedy to action and much more. So let's dive into it. First up is a demonic action thriller that feels straight out of the 80s in all of the ways that you would hope. Satan has created the perfect killer, one that cannot be stopped. In The First Power from 1990, starring Lou Diamond Phillips, Tracy Griffith, and Jeff Kober, written and directed by Robert Reznikoff. I think The First Power is a solid supernatural thriller that blends horror and crime and action and the occult into just a fun, nostalgic ride through the grim streets of Los Angeles. I think director Robert Reznikoff really infuses this movie with the gritty and at times noirish feel, complete with shadowy alleys and ominous rituals and a continual sense of dread that all do work well in this film's entertainment value overall. I think Lou Diamond Phillips delivers a great performance. He convincingly portrays this man who's just pushed to the limits by an enemy that he can barely comprehend, let alone defeat. And then there's Kober, whose portrayal as this resurrected killer is chilling. He's clearly having fun in this role. His manic energy, to me, really does add a layer of unpredictability to the film's suspense. And overall, The First Power's blend of crime thriller, horror, and action offers something different from the typical slasher and action fare from the era, making it an underrated entry in the genre despite some comical overacting by Tracy Griffith. Next up is a maximum comedy at minimum wage when the town storyteller takes the job that nobody wanted and ended up with the girl that everybody did. In 1991's Career Opportunities, starring Frank Whaley, Jennifer Connelly, and Dermot Mulroney from the mind of John Hughes, directed by Brian Gordon. Now, Career Opportunities is far from John Hughes' best work. In fact, he actually let it be known that he wanted his name removed from this movie altogether upon its release. However, I think despite its limitations that it's still a charming little comedy with a jovial energy to it that can just lure you in. I remember seeing this movie so many times as a kid. It gave me dreams of working nights at Target, and luckily as I got older, my aspirations grew a little bit, but regardless of that, it made overnights at the department store look like so much fun. There's so much charisma from the performance from Whaley that you can't help but love this bumbling character. I'll admit he's a bit too much Ferris Bueller in spots, but Whaley certainly does make the character his own. His delivery of the tall tales is amusing. You never know what this guy's going to say or do next, which is just kind of adds to the fun. Then you get Jennifer Connelly, who does have her moments. Admittedly, her character is underwritten, and after the montages and the collection of jokes, the story doesn't really know what to do with itself. But regardless of all that, this is a lovable comedic gem from the early 90s that still holds up. This comedy follows a con man that can resist anything but love and money, and that's something he's going to have to choose between in Peter McDonald's Mo Money from 1992, written by and starring Damon Wayans, along with his little brother Marlon Wayans, and Stacey Dash and John Deal. To me, Mo Money is an energized movie that delivers a blend of full-throttle comedy with high-energy action and a picture-perfect 90s soundtrack. Admittedly, this one plays like an extended music video, which I think actually in this case does help the film have a fun, engaging atmosphere that is able to make all the excess of style and action and attempts at humor and melodrama just a fun-loving adventure with a swift pace. I think Damon Wayans is able to blend his relentless humor with a capable action persona. He does feel a little too cool under pressure at times, which doesn't help the already artificial feel of this plot, but it certainly isn't a deal breaker. He and his brother Marlon are hilarious. They effortlessly sell the fast-talking street hustler personas as they get in over their heads in this credit card scheme. And sure, it's all surface level, but it is plenty engaging. I think Stacey Dash is engaging, and so it's easy to understand forging credit cards to try and impress her. I watched this movie so many times in the second run theater, then at home on cable. It's stylish, it's sexy, and it still entertains today. This sports action drama follows a couple of small-town friends looking to discover the spirit of skiing who end up finding wealth and seduction, teaching them that when you're in Aspen, skiing is the easy part. In 1993's Aspen Extreme, starring Paul Gross, Peter Berg, and Terry Polo, written and directed by Patrick Hasberg. Personally, I think Aspen Extreme is a heavily undermentioned film when it comes to sports dramas. Sure, it delivers in excess of melodrama, but that isn't to say that the story, its plot beats, and the character arcs aren't still written with a heartfelt sincerity and a certain level of authenticity. I think this movie really captures the journey of friendship. It really cuts it with the determination of striving for a better life, as well as showing how taking that risk and taking that chance can go both good and not so good. The movie does certainly have contrasting tones. There are some dark and intentionally heavy-handed moments. Then there are some blatantly superficial moments, and it may not work for everyone to their movie taste. This film really does play on your elementary level emotions, but that's also why it's so easy to get lost in. I think Gross and Berg are both natural for their roles. Their chemistry captures the bond between them effectively. I think Terry Polo really cements the cast with a grounded performance, much like Berg, who just has a very tough go in this movie. Plus, I think the skiing action is excellently shot, which results in a movie that delivers a bit of it all for the genre. Next up is a coming-of-age dramedy about love in the 90s when a filmmaker and her Gen X friends navigate post-life college in Reality Bites from 1994, starring Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, Janine Garofalo, Steve Zahn, and Ben Stiller, who also directed. When this movie was released, Ben Stiller steered away from the Gen X label in hopes of appealing to a wider audience, of course, but there's no denying that Reality Bites is a young adult Gen X story, and it's a damn good one as it explores the lives of post-college friends and the next steps in their lives. This movie really resonated with me so much. I remember seeing this one when I was a junior in high school, and it really just connected with me as a kid who didn't really know what his place in this world was. There was a little something in each of these characters to connect with, so you can, I think, really invest in this group, and with smart writing that doesn't try to embellish for the sake of melodrama, that you can easily immerse yourself in the real life vibe of these plot layers. I think the performances overall are fantastic, not perfect, which in this case is actually perfect for the needs of these just grounded real life characters. I think Stiller's direction is intimate and inviting, and the music is just the energizer to it all, in a film that has gone on to become a certified cult classic for very good reason. Now, this is a full feature film based on the HBO anthology series, and it centers on a group of people trapped in a rundown church. On the same night, a powerful presence will show itself in 1995's Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, starring Jada Pinkett, before she was smithed, William Sadler, Dick Miller, and Billy Zane, from director Ernest R. Dickerson. I think many would agree that it's not easy to pull off horror and comedy in one film. Many try, but many also fail. However, to me, Demon Knight is one of those that succeeds by delivering a bold, vibrant, lived-in story that can easily lure you in, as well as cutting it with a sadistic little sense of humor. This movie also really thrives with its ominous atmosphere. I think the dark, rainy settings and the singular location are perfect for the fast-moving story that can just keep you on edge. I think the ensemble cast is great for the needs of this plot. I think everybody really gets their moments to shine or leave an impression on the film. Sure, you can assume who the easily expendable characters are, but there are still plenty of surprises as the intensity ramps up and the body count increases. But I think really where this movie thrives is just in its over-the-top zeal. Demon Knight knows what it is. It goes all in on that. The quieter moments are driven by the cast and just enough character plotting, and it's cut with intense surges of violence and spectacle. The carnage is delightfully sadistic. The humor is as well, and I think this movie still kicks ass. This moody, dramatic thriller is set in the aftermath of a massive blackout as people reconsider what is necessary, what is questionable, and what is legal to survive. And David Kopp's The Trigger Effect from 1996, starring Elizabeth Shue, Kyle MacLachlan, Dermot Mulroney, Richard Jones, and Michael Rooker. This is another of those movies that will certainly not be to everybody's taste. It was given a limited release back in '96 and it never really took off. It explores the concept of humans being unable to cohabitate without technology. However, some may view the exploration as one that delivers a great potential idea only to maybe follow through on it with just a surface level lens. I will admit the focal characters are underwritten. The finale doesn't go nearly as hard as it should have. However, despite the sanitized closing, I do think that The Trigger Effect provides 90% of an engrossing film. There's a surreal uneasiness about this movie that really works in its favor as you constantly feel like something bad is going to happen. I remember seeing this movie back in the theater when I was younger. I didn't really know what to think about it at the time. I gave it a shot and it didn't really grab me then. I have seen it a few times as I've gotten older, and I think it's actually a great watch when you're in the mood for an extremely grounded story that sort of plays like real life without the studio spectacle. This next comedy showcases a charming cast when a street hustler on the run from the cops and the criminals strikes a deal with a TV newsman whose career is starting to flounder in exchange for protection in 1997's Money Talks, starring Chris Tucker, Charlie Sheen, Heather Locklear, and Paul Sorvino. This was a movie that was definitely not so well received by critics when it was released, and I will admit that this plot and these characters and this theme of comedy is probably a decade too late. But still, I think Money Talks is just a delightfully silly comedy that delivers plenty of mindless laughs. I think Chris Tucker is definitely the driving force of the comedic tone, but Charlie Sheen also showcases his comedic timing as well. I will admit they aren't the best duo overall. I do think their best moments are probably individual in this film, but they still manage to infuse this silly comedy with plenty of laughs and mindless fun. I think Paul Sorvino lands a lot of laughs. Heather Locklear also makes the most of a basic character, and overall, the fast pace of this movie really does work in its favor. It's not a laugh out loud comedy. It has some very humorous moments, but it does lay the groundwork for a free-spirited and lighthearted action comedy that does land more laughs than it whiffs on. And sure, Money Talks is by the numbers. It's predictable, it's forgettable, but it's also an easily consumable comedy that you can have fun with for a tight 96 minutes. Next up is a dark comedy that follows a group of friends who head out to Vegas for the bachelor party of their lives, but when a prostitute is accidentally killed, they all turn on each other in Very Bad Things from 1998, starring Christian Slater, Daniel Stern, Cameron Diaz, Jon Favreau, and a few other familiar faces. This movie was a financial and critical flop, and many people would say deservedly so. However, I contend that if you look at Very Bad Things as a horror comedy and a pure horror comedy and not simply just a dark comedy, then the mean-spirited humor in this film does land in a much more defiantly jovial way. This movie is way over the top. It's super violent and unsettling. It will turn many people off, but on the other side of the coin, it also has a sharp and sadistic sense of humor. The performances go all in, and its unrelenting lack of morality is something you can easily just sit back and laugh at while still not really liking any of the characters or agreeing with their decisions. But to me, that's kind of the point. I mean, Very Bad Things is set in a hyper-realistic setting that spirals out of control and even more hyper-realistic ways, just getting worse and worse. I remember bringing this movie to a girl's house that I was really into at the time. She was a tad reserved, and I didn't know about this movie, but it had Slater and Diaz in it, so I figured, what the hell? Needless to say, this movie can still entertain all these years later in a very absurd way, but I never heard from that girl again after that night. This next movie delivers a little bit of everything after a botched drug deal is explored from 3 different points of view in Doug Liman's crime comedy Go from 1999, starring a great ensemble cast featuring Sarah Polley, Jay Moore, Scott Wolf, Katie Holmes, Taye Diggs, Timothy Olyphant, and others. Movies built on separate stories or points of view all running at the same time can often run into issues, most notably being continuity, but Doug Liman's Go, on the contrary, is a master class in telling multiple angles of the same event that are all connected with precision when the time comes. First, Go has a fantastic cast. There are so many familiar faces in this film, and with such a broad variety of personalities, there's really something for everybody to connect with. But really what makes this movie great is the smart writing, the clever humor, and just the crisp, tight pacing. This movie shoots out of the gate, and from there it really just throws story layers at you, each with their own mood, all filled with their own interesting characters and their own character dynamics. This is all set to high energy music from the era, and it just makes Go a roller coaster ride of screw ups, close calls, bad choices, and with a variety of comedic tones. It still makes this movie unlike few others all these years later. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed episode 2 of my Lost Movies from the 1990s series. This list delivers 10 modestly forgotten 90s movies that are still a blast to watch today. Thank you guys for watching this video. As always, I greatly appreciate all of your support. Episode 3 of this series will be coming very soon. I hope to see you guys all there. And until then, movies never say die.
Jack Burton and the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?